to add doors, make a difference, increase revenue, help others, impact lives, and you're interested in growing in business and life, and you are open to doing things a bit differently, then you are a door grow hacker. Door grow hackers love the opportunities, daily variety, unique challenges, and freedom that property management brings. Many in real estate think you're crazy for doing it. You think they're crazy for not, because you realize that property management is the ultimate high trust gateway to real estate deals, relationships, and residual income. At DoorGrow, we are on a mission to transform property management business owners and their businesses. We want to transform the industry, eliminate the BS, build awareness, change perception, expand the market, and help the best property management entrepreneurs win. I'm your host, property management growth expert, Jason Hull, the founder and CEO of DoorGrow, along with Sarah Hull, the COO of DoorGrow. Now let's get into the show. And our guests today are Tim Wallace and Larry Hancock of Tenant Turner. Welcome, you two.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, thanks for having us.
So does everybody there have red hair now? Is this a thing?
We're slowly taking over the world. Like, it's just gingers unite.
Yeah, gingers unite.
Job application requirement. We don't know.
That sounds like a really good t-shirt.
I like it.
Yeah.
Are you willing to dye your hair
red? That'd be the strangest thing. Yeah. It's part of the uniform. All right. Awesome. Well, it's good to have you both. And we really appreciate you being a sponsor for our DoorGrow events and doing some cool stuff with us. And Tim, you actually sold Sarah Tenant Turner previously.
Larry.
Oh, Larry did. Larry sold Sarah Tenant Turner. Yeah, you can't have the credit, Tim. Sorry. It's Larry.
You did it.
Larry did this. He closed the deal in Sarah's property management business that she's since sold, but they're still using Tenant Turner.
They do use Tenant Turner.
There you go. So awesome. So our topic today is scaling up your leasing process during the busy season, which is right now, right? It's summer. Things heat up. And what's interesting, if you look at, if you do go on to Google Trends, trends.google.com, and you look at the keyword property management and you backdate it for like a decade, and you'll see it just spikes. It doesn't go up, like it's not growing in search volume, but property management spikes every summer and goes down in the winter. And that's probably how leasing works as well in property management. So
definitely.
Where should we start with scaling up your leasing process during the busy season?
Yeah. So what's interesting is it's almost like a catch-22 for our customers. So for folks that aren't using any kind of automation, they're like, I really need your services, but I'm just too darn busy to even consider it. I'm like, why didn't you talk to us just a few months earlier? And then you got the opposite side where some customers are like, I'm not busy enough to consider your services. So we're always trying to, have these conversations with these people of why automation is beneficial for them, whether they're in a stage where they're just, drinking from a fire hydrant and they're just trying to just figure things out while they're in the busy leasing season, or maybe you are using automation and it's just a matter of creating efficiencies. So that way you can continually grow your business. So typically that's how we'll start our conversation, is kind of, where are you at right now? Are you kind of just struggling to stay afloat and you need to add some automation into your life? Or do you have the automation and it's just creating those efficiencies in your business?
So how do you help people that say they're not busy enough justify leveraging and getting Tenant Turner?
Yeah. So from there, it's really trying to get them more in the headspace of like, I understand that for now, but let's figure out how we can create value here. So maybe I'm getting them in a place of, let's build the building blocks. We're not going to create your account just yet, but let's, in a perfect world, when you are busy and need our services, let's kind of back out what the steps are to get there. Sometimes maybe their portfolio isn't large enough. So then that would be a time when I would recommend to someone like you, Jason, where it's like, hey, you need to be a part of a program where you can, grow your portfolio, because he's going to help you grow your portfolio, and then you're going to need us because you're only one person, right? So I'll try to get them in that kind of headspace, but it's really almost building their tech stack. So while we're an important piece to that whole thing, there's other moving parts to the entire system. So that's usually how I start. It's really more playing a consultative role. So I'm trying to consult them, figure out where they're at in the process. And if they're not a good fit for us that day, that's okay. Maybe they will be. And then I'm going to set a reminder to reach out before their busy leasing season, basically.
So where is that kind of cutoff point to where they've achieved, tenant Turner readiness status?
Yeah, so sometimes people will view it from like a portfolio size. I
Mhm.
think it's really more about the entrepreneurial mindset. I met some people where they have just one door and they're like, "Hey, Larry, I'm going to be 100 units by the end of the year." I'm like, "That's awesome, man. It's great. You're kind of trying to build this plane before you're trying to take off." Where sometimes I talk to customers like, "Hey, we're flying this plane. The wings are about to fall off, and I just don't know what to do." I'm like,
I'm
"Okay, all
gonna
right."
build it in the air. I'm
Yeah,
working on it.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, well, I appreciate you, diving head first, but you're probably really stressed out right now. So, typically in our world, our pricing model is month to month, no contract. So 1 to 50 units, you're fine. We're going to talk to you. We're not going to be like, oh, you're too small for us, man. Like, I just can't talk to you. We have a great culture in that way. We try to be that partner with them. But typically, our general rule of thumb is if you expect to have any vacancy, whether it's one throughout the entire year, you should at least consider us, even if it's only 1 month out of the entire year. We'll still talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think something that people don't always realize is even if you're like, I don't need it right now, I'm not ready, I don't have enough, um, it's going to make it so much easier if you have systems in place already
Hmm.
so that you can scale, so that when you scale, you're not now in massive amounts of pain.
Right.
And even if you only have, one door, 8 doors, 10 doors, any vacancy is painful.
Yeah.
Any vacancy is painful. And it's going to help you massively, not only just in your time and your effort, but it will make your clients happier. Like when I implemented Tenant Turner, my vacancy rate like took a nosedive. Now,
Hmm.
not that I had a high vacancy rate, but like just trying to like market and figure out where to put these things and answering all the messages and doing a gazillion showings for people that might not even qualify. It was taking sometimes like weeks to fill a vacancy.
Yeah.
And when I implemented that, it went down dramatically. So clients are much, much happier, and you and your staff are going to be much, much happier because now it's a lot less work for you.
Yeah. And kind of building on that, Sarah, we kind of find our solution is almost like an aspirin approach. So people are kind of taking that aspirin when they have a headache in the form of vacancy. And there is a time and place to pop the aspirin, but usually what's a lot better is kind of plan ahead of, oh, I know could have headaches during this time of the year. So I'm going to be a little bit more, I'm going to prepare. I'm going to be more proactive. Where I see people have the right mindset in regards to software is usually what they'll do is they'll annualize the cost and then figure out how to generate enough ROI. So if I'm able to save, 5 hours per week, and I annualize the software in such a way, I don't need to worry about it because I've looked at the 12-month period and I know I'm going to get my value that way. It's a little bit harder when you're trying to convince people when they're kind of penny pinching, and it's like you're wasting all this time on that part, and that time worrying about it, you just wasted where you could be attracting new owners. So the
Mm.
mindset really is kind of annualizing the software, but trying to build the ROI into that.
Yeah,
That's
and I have to say, like, I was hesitant for a while because I was like, well, this is easy, and like I have this streamlined process. And really, I had said this to you. I was like, I just don't spend that much time. I had 200 and like some odd units, like 260, I think, at my highest. And when I was talking with you, I was like, I just don't spend that much time doing it. So is there a benefit to it? Yes, but how much time am I really going to save? Because I feel like it's already something that is simple for me. And even though I had this streamlined and I had processes defined, and I maybe was spending a couple hours a week doing, messaging and email and confirmations and stuff like that, I was still spending time doing it. When I implemented Tenant Turner, then I was like, oh, I don't have anything to do. Like every once in a while, I have to just pop in and you have to like manually approve somebody. And then I updated my showing schedule once a week. So once a week, I had to go in and update the showing schedule for the upcoming week, which took all of maybe 4 minutes. And other than that, I was just popping in and kind of like manually approving people. And I was spending, I went from maybe a few hours a week, which I still didn't think was a lot, to minutes per week. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. I see it. Now I see it. But sometimes I think you have to experience it to see it, because I was like, I just don't know. And I was really glad that I did it, because it really, like, it took so much. And sometimes when you make a change like that, then you realize how much work you are actually doing, because we rationalize. We're like, it's not that hard. It doesn't take me that long. Like, I just send a couple emails. And then when you realize, oh, I don't have to do any of that anymore, then I was like, it was like mind blowing to me. I was like, oh, like, this literally takes me like 10 minutes a week, and that's it. So all
And
my leasing was done in 10 minutes.
I think that's one of my favorite ways to justify an expense is you have to look at the opportunity cost. Because if you're just looking, you're like, okay, well, it cost me this much money, and if I do it myself, then it's free. But your time is the most valuable resource you have in a business.
It's not
And
free.
the most important currency related to growth is not cash, it's focus. And if your focus is diluted as a business owner away from what can generate more revenue, then the opportunity cost is huge. In 2 to 3 hours, you could be closing deals that are worth tens of thousands of dollars over that year. So it's really stupid, in contrast, to like hold on to the moldy peanuts in the monkey trap, because you don't want to let go and not get your hand out, because you just want to be cheap. And so I find that cheap business owners attract cheap clients, and they don't grow and scale their businesses. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm being cheap and I'm being frugal and that's smart, it's not smart when it comes to business, and it's not smart when it comes to growth. You need to let go of those moldy peanuts. There's bananas in reach, and the farmer's going to come along and chop off your head, right? You're going to lose. And this is why most businesses fail. Most businesses fail in the
Or they get
first year or
stuck.
the first 5 years. A lot fail. And property management is tough. And I see a lot
They just get stuck, and they're like,
get
I
trapped.
don't have more time. I can't do anything else. Like, I don't know what else I can do. And making these little changes, like, I'm going to be honest with you. I bought into the product, and I still wasn't like, I think that's going to be amazing. I was like, it'll help me. And it helped way more than I thought it was going to help me. And it really, I would say this is like, out of one was implementing a property management software, and two was implementing Tenant Turner. Those are the two things that like made a massive shift in my business for me. And
Nice.
I almost wish I could have told myself, like, hey, remember when you had 260 units and you were doing it all yourself? You should have been talking to Tenant Turner then.
There was some guy that had mentioned these things
I
to
know,
you,
and I don't
but
like to
you're a
listen
little
here.
stubborn. So
I'm so
there was
stubborn.
this guy. He's
I
pretty
think
smart.
even if you are in that cheap mindset, like at the end of the day, like vacancy is what's going to cost your owners the most money down the road too. Like one day on the market can cost them anywhere from what, $50 to $200, depending on what they're paying for their mortgage and everything.
Mm.
It's like those costs add up, and it's, as property managers, it's your fiduciary duty to help them recoup that money. And if you're spending too much time on those types of things, even if you're focused on your business and spending time on that, you could still be losing that money by having them those extra days on market without this type of system.
Absolutely. And I think the conversation that I have with people over and over and over again is, you need to figure out what this particular task is worth in dollars. So if this is like a $10 an hour task, a $20 an hour task, is it something that you as a business owner need to be doing? Is your time worth more than $10 or $20 an hour? And if the answer to that question is yes, then you need to not be the one who's doing this.
Yeah, if a business owner, and a lot of business owners are the BDM, they are the business development manager, they are the person that's doing sales and generating revenue and growing the business. And if you do not, as a business owner, have a full-time BDM, you have somebody focus on this, and it's on your shoulders, then you're a shitty part-time salesperson. You're maybe investing, I find, 1, maybe 2 hours a day. That's like 10 hours a week focusing on growing the business. And so everything else other than that should be offloaded that you can. Everything else. Give up the leasing stuff as much as you can. Give up the maintenance stuff as much as you can. Like, you need to be focused on generating revenue until you can offload that piece and focus. Otherwise, you're not going to grow. And if any business owner is listening to this, in property management, if you haven't grown significantly over the last year or 2 or 3, it's because you are doing the wrong things as a business owner in the business. Plain and simple. There's no way around that. So, all right. So we chatted about justifying it. For those that are already, they have lots of doors and they're, how do we deal with making things scalable during the busy season? And then things really for leasing tend to really cool down in the winter months. And so what are you typically seeing with clients that come to you that are maybe at a 200 plus stores, or it's obvious that you can serve them?
Well, I mean, even if you do have 200 doors, sure, summertime is going to be the busiest, where generally speaking, you could have anywhere from 5 to 12% vacancy rates and whatnot with turnovers and whatnot. During the winter time, there still might be 1 or 2 that hit every month. And what we're noticing with customers that size is that throughout the year, we kind of keep things with that month-to-month rate really low for everyone. It's based on portfolio size for us. And so most people are keeping that active because even one listing, like you're saying, if you're working on one listing, spending 2 or 3 hours on that one listing, even having to go back and forth with the messages, the emails, and everything like that, that could still be costing you more than what your monthly rate for your subscription might be. So a lot of people do keep us going year round and have the lock boxes and things like that in service for vendors and stuff that might need to come and go for properties as well. So there's lots of different little solutions that we provide there too that kind of help keep the business flowing smoothly. But generally speaking, we're there when they need us, and in any spot on the road, where if it's crazy or if it's just a little bit, we try to keep the system smooth all year for them.
I guess to add to that, so typically when things are slow, usually people are saying, I'm not getting enough leads. Really what they mean is they're not getting enough leads from, Zillow, Trulia, the big networks. And when they come to us and say, hey, what do I do? What can Tenant Turner provide? That's usually when I tell them, like, you're really going to hunker down, and how are you going to be different than your competition? And that's also times when, like, let's look at your website. Are you being an industry leader in your market? So maybe they're not going to the Zillows, but when they search, or, what is your presence in your market? Automation is great, and you definitely should automate, but then there's also times to be that personalized touch. So when things are slow, what aren't your competitors doing? If they're leaning really heavy where they can't talk to a person at all, maybe you should go to what we call the take request model, where we're automating things, we're pre-qualifying, and then we're setting, a couple days and times. But before an appointment's approved, you get to talk to that lead. And really what you're doing, you're leveraging yourself. You introduce yourself, you say why you're great in your market, maybe some key differentiators, and then you schedule an appointment. And you do a couple things. What I like to say is you're doing what's called a good vibes test, just to make sure both of you are, a good fit, rather to rent the property and that type of stuff. And also you're making sure they have a heartbeat, making sure, if you're using self-guided tours, it's another security layer to everything. Because at the end of the day, it's not always, I'm a big fan of the book called Rework by the guys who created Basecamp. And the whole philosophy is that it's not that in a world where people saying, I need more of this, whether it's I need more leads or I need more tools, it's more utilizing the tools that you already have more efficiently. So when we look at things like lead flow, maybe it's not necessarily a top of the funnel problem. It's more of a bottom of the funnel conversion problem. And that's when you use personalization to a lot of interesting ways, like I mentioned.
So one of the things that I think is happening a bit throughout the US, and I've had some podcast guests touch on this, is that in some markets, and I've heard some property managers anecdotally share this with me as well, they're having a difficulty getting tenants because the inventory as a result of the pandemic just went up, skyrocketed. A lot of people are like, hey, let's build, let's create a bunch of investments. And now there's a surplus of inventory, and that creates a scarcity of tenants. And so they're having to get a little bit more aggressive. What strategies have you guys seen, or, because you're connected to a lot of people that are doing leasing, how are they becoming more attractive to tenants than their competition?
You want to start? So there's a lot of different things out there, like different solutions, whether it's providing something like a benefits package to your residents, things like that, really making your listings stand out. If it's better photography, if it's better marketing in general for stuff. But generally speaking, we are kind of seeing that trend as well, where days on market are expanding a little bit. It's kind of a trend. We were kind of in a Goldilocks zone for the last couple of years with rentals. Like it's been amazing, and pre-COVID, it wasn't ever really like that either. Like that, we're kind of seeing the ebbs and flows of the market, and that's just natural in real estate. So we're coming back to the time where people are like kind of hunkering down and making sure that their properties are as good as they can be to really attract the best tenants for them. So while there might be a few extra days on market, there's a couple things you can do around there, like Larry's saying, adding those personal touches in there. Setting up notifications so that as soon as someone gets to the property, you can still have that personal touch by making a phone call as soon as you can see they got into the property. Or if maybe some people are doing a few more in-person showings, if that's the case. Generally speaking, that's putting more time on the property as well, which, like we talked about, opportunity costs. If you got the team to do that, and that's kind of their role as a leasing agent or whatnot, great. They can have that personal touch and then go a little bit further with them. But if you're also focused on self showings, having that additional personal touch, some additional marketing on the property or whatnot, can kind of help draw that process out a little bit sooner. And really, with our system, we really try to provide as much immediacy as possible. So when someone sees a listing on a site like Zillow, for instance, if they're clicking request information, we're sending them an email right away that they have the opportunity to come into Tenant Turner and click a link and schedule a tour right away. If they're calling into us, they're not going to a voicemail. They're going to be sitting there waiting 3 days for someone to respond to. I know that's a trend of the industry. A lot of people have massively filled inboxes that they just can't handle. So tenant leads never hear back from anyone because they kind of pick and choose. We're responding to every single one of those leads as they come in and making sure that immediacy is really driving that engagement. So if we keep that engagement up for everyone, the goal is that, generally speaking, that alone will really help drive I think there's a statistic out there. If you respond within 5 minutes, generally speaking, you're going to get 80% more acceptance in terms of a conversation.
Yeah.
Whether it's that click or an actual phone call, things like that. Like providing that immediacy is massive, and it goes a long way for impressing tenant leads on the consumer side, but also in business. We all know B2B sales and even BDMs, like calling their owners. As soon as you see a click on a website, you want to call them. So we want to keep that trend going on our side as well.
Yeah, this is the TikTok generation, man. They have attention spans of like 2 minutes, it's like really short. So I love these ideas. So pushing owners to improve the property, I think, is a great strategy. Increasing your availability and your responsiveness and that immediacy. Quick beats slow, for sure, in business. Increasing the ease, which Tenant Turner helps with. And and then making sure that you are able to be super responsive within the first 5 minutes. So yeah, love it. All right, cool. What else should we chat about related to scaling up your process during the busy season? Did we miss anything?
We got it. I know typically the elephant in the room. So a lot of times, self-guided tours is kind of like the golden child of, why you should consider it and how it's helpful, whether it's busy or slow and this and the other. But one of the things that we had is for people that aren't using it, is like, I would never consider that, or I'm scared to use this, or I can never get owner buy-in. And that's kind of always the elephant in the room. I know, Tim, you have some very interesting data of, while, like anything in business, there are inherent risks. But as business owners, every day we are willing to kind of, improve or, try to tackle these risks. And there's usually a pot, not all the time, but, a pot of gold can be waiting for you. So was there any data that you wanted to share, Tim?
Before we get into that, let's kill that objection real quick, because I hear this all the time too. So I say, hey, maybe you should be using Tenant Turner or something like this. And they say, well, I don't want to do lock boxes. And my response is, you don't have to. Nobody's like, there's a lot of benefits besides that piece. In fact, there's plenty of benefits besides that piece. And so, so maybe you can address that real quick, and then we can talk about, is that even really a valid concern or not? And are there markets that are better for lock boxes versus others? Some are like, I can never do that in my market. I'll have squatters all over the place. They're concerned. So let's address that elephant in the room.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you guys know your properties best. You're going to know which areas might have a high potential for negativity happening. Whether it's someone coming in and stealing wires, or the horror stories of people stealing appliances and stuff like that. At the end of the day, if someone wants to do something bad, a lockbox or a keyless lock isn't necessarily going to stop someone in that scenario.
Right.
We all know areas where people aren't afraid to break a window to get in and steal a refrigerator. Like the
Right.
fact that a property is known to be vacant is a big enough red flag alone that most people that want to do something nefarious will go ahead and do it. But at the same time, on our side of things, if we can block as many of those instances as possible with our abilities to kind of keep track of known scammers and squatters and things like that, we've got some stuff built into our system. But really, at the end of the day, if someone wants to do something bad, it's going to happen. But generally speaking, most people that are doing showings, that type of scenario, if you know your area, if you're doing your own kind of awareness inspections periodically and you're on top of the property yourself, we barely hear of any instances of negativity happening with those scenarios. Like self showings, we can come up with the horror stories, but at the end of the day, in our experience, they are really few and far between. And we're not having major issues, at least more than what you would on average see with any property that's being marketed that's vacant. Like it's going to happen.
And there's some serious advantages because I would imagine the best defense period against all of those type of problems is just getting it leased out as quick as possible. It's decreasing vacancy. And so if a lockbox can help them get into it right away, get a showing right away, whatever, decreasing the vacancy time is probably your best, defense.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'll add to this too is if there are people who are kind of scoping out the property and they notice, hey, like every Tuesday at 6:00, people come and then that's it. They're not going to come at Tuesday at 6:00. They're going to come at other times, right? So if we do have a lockbox on it and now we don't really know like when people are going to come because they're coming whenever is convenient for them. So it might be earlier in the morning or in the afternoon or late at night. We don't know for sure. There's not so much predictability in the schedule. So I think that's something that would help as well, is if there's someone who's kind of like, hey, that house over there is vacant. Let's like check that out. But they consistently see people in and out of it. That is a little bit of a deterrent as well, because you never know. Like, hey, if I go over there because I want to steal that refrigerator, am I walking into someone who's already there?
Now you can not have a big old sign on the property out front that says, hey, this is vacant right now. Do you want to see this? So, but you can still market it online without like giving out the address until they're ready to do a showing, probably. And so,
yeah, so there's some kind of tips and tricks that we found. So one thing is not advertising it as a self-guided tour. If you're going to use verbiage in the marketing description, use contactless showing, because that could mean virtual tours. It could mean other things. But really for us, I like to describe ourselves as a closed loop system, because usually leads are only interacting with our platform if they find out through your website or through a syndication site. So it makes it much more harder to shop for homes because they really don't know, but if they inquire, then that's when the automation will engage. Some interesting things, kind of like Sarah said, one thing deterrent is they see activity, but we find that a lead isn't going to put a government ID, answer some questions and go through this process. Why would they do that when they can just go to the front door? You could go to YouTube and learn how to pick a lock in under 5 minutes, and then no one's going to know I'm on the radar. It's so much easier to do that, especially in the age of TikTok. I'm sure there's a TikTok within 2 minutes or less, you'll learn how to pick a lock.
Or pop open a lockbox.
Or something like that too.
Or break a window.
Or break a window.
Right. Yeah, it's a little bit quicker probably. Yeah. All right, cool. So how can people get in touch with Tenant Turner and reach out to you guys?
Yeah, so obviously if they want to learn a little bit about our services, tenantturner.com. My name's Larry at tenantturner.com. Feel free to email me directly. I kind of deem myself as a software nerd. So, any questions about whether you use us or not, that's fine. I'm always happy to share tips and tricks of how to automate your process. So that's kind of how you learn some more.
So Larry's on the sales side of things for Tenant Turner. I'm on the marketing side too. So if you ever need any additional materials or data and statistics around the self showings, if you want to help market to your owners and whatnot, if you've already signed up with Tenant Turner, happy to kind of jump on that side of things. You can email me at tim@tenantturner.com.
Awesome. I'm sure that's a big part of it is really if they understand how to sell it to their clients, then that's probably the biggest hurdle is just being able to confidently say, here's why this is a good idea and how it's going to benefit you and to sell them on it. So awesome. Well, it's been great having you both here on the show. We appreciate Tenant Turner. We get great feedback on Tenant Turner from our clients. So we've always felt very confident pushing our clients towards you as one part of their growth strategy. And I hope you guys have an awesome week.
Thanks. You as well. We appreciate you guys, and thanks for including us.
All right. So if you are a property management entrepreneur that is wanting to grow your business, reach out to Tenant Turner and make sure you reach out to DoorGrow. We are really good at helping our clients scale. If you feel like you need more doors to be able to afford Tenant Turner or to be able to justify Tenant Turner, we're really good at helping people do that. Anything else we should add?
I don't think so.
Let's tell them to join our Facebook group.
Join our Facebook group.
There you go. DoorGrowClub.com. Join our Facebook group community. We have some free stuff in there, and we will make sure that you are moving your business forward. And check us out at DoorGrow.com. Bye, everyone.